All right, what is up, my younger brothers from another mother? This one here is for the younglings, for young men, let's say. I'm not going to call him a kid because a lot of people get categorized as a kid in their early 20s. You're a grown-ass adult as soon as you hit 18, 19, 20, depending on where you are in the world. Let's hop straight into this. It's a reach request from a young man that wants some advice on where he might perhaps take his life. Anyway, he opens up with just some thanks for the content. He says he's a 22-year-old in Melbourne, Australia, about to finish last exam in June, majoring in economics and management. Had no idea what I wanted to do after school, so I made the choice to go to university and hopefully wanted to find myself when it was over. I would have an understanding. Well, it's been 4 years and definitely want to go down the business path, but the reality is university teaches you shit, and I feel as if I've still got no experience and it was a waste of 4 years and an unnecessary amount of money. Yeah, I think I've talked in the channel about my feelings on university. I think you can probably search for that there. He's got a thirst for knowledge, but the traditional education system has never worked for me personally. Learned from through actual hands-on work. Due to my confusion at this stage of my life, I sadly decided to go. That's kind of the pressure that society puts on young men. You know, the school system is really designed to teach girls, and it treats boys like defective girls through the school system. We're told to sit down, take our notes, complete the tests, and, you know, funnel through the corporate machine of doing what you're supposed to do like a good corporate drone. Let's continue here. Anyway, so he's finishing up his education. Always been interested in business, but it's been hard to get in the right direction. When I get career advice at Deakin, I'm guessing that's probably some school. They just recommend me to a job somewhere in some random company to do some service work like accounting. So he says, what do you think I should do? So basically, you know, what do I do after school? He's got this education. I think I summed this up here in my notes. He's got this education from basically a B-list school. They've made recommendations to work at big names like Deloitte and Touche, Boston Consulting, and a few others. But his problem is he finds that most of them, they don't want to hire kids, I'm saying kids again, young men from these B-list schools. That's just the way that it works. I mean, if you want to work for a corporation that pulls students out of university as they're graduating to their apprenticeship, you know, whatever that entry level role is, they always put some kind of name towards it, associate, whatever the hell it is. Doesn't matter. You're going to have to come from a pretty prestigious school to get into like the big name companies, Siemens, Deloitte and Touche, the big, you know, I say Bay Street law firms here because we've got Bay Street as like the main area where the financial district and the law firms operate. But essentially, you've got to come from a top shelf school if you want to get in there. And if you don't have that, you're basically at a B-list school going for whatever you can get. You're getting scraps at that point. Let's talk about school, first of all, for a brief moment before I give you some advice on the exact scenario. STEM degrees, that's what you want. Science, technology, engineering, and math. I've said this before on the channel. You want a STEM degree. It looks like you're going for some kind of a business degree. There's a ton of people out there that have business degrees from some kind of school that's not prestigious. And you get thrown out in the work world, and there's a lot of these guys that are, you know, making Frappuccino lattes at Starbucks sort of thing. So, my advice still remains, don't waste your time on that sort of school system. The money would be far better spent if you have a business idea, trying to launch it and get it off the ground, spend a few $1,000s on that. If it fails, the lesson you'll get out of that will be far greater than what you get out of a few years in school, sitting in front of a teacher who is teaching you things that he has no idea how to do himself. Trust me, I've sat there in that classroom, I've seen the movie, I know how it ends. So what should you do after school? Well, let's continue on because you talk a little bit about business. So you're going on about you don't want a 9-to-5 job. Consulting is an area of interest. You work in practical business problems, so you like solving problems. You're like most guys. I mean, most guys need to work with their hands. You mentioned that earlier. We want to work with our hands. We want to solve problems. We don't want to sit in classrooms and take notes. That's how men are. That's how men learn. I mean, there's nothing strange or unusual about that. That's just what it's all about. Despite being interested in business, I am not sure if I have the entrepreneurship aspect. One of my ideals, Warren Buffett, isn't either. As you would know, but he's amazing at evaluating them and buying them when he feels they are cheap at their intrinsic value along the comparative advantage. Wish I had the money to do the same, but I can't obviously, and buying shares is great. But okay, so you're getting into an early start buying some share, that's fine. Practical experience at first. This is my ideal goal. Being able to buy a small business would be amazing. So let's talk about buying a business, because now you're getting into entrepreneurship, which is my key strength and category. Entrepreneurship is a skill that most people learn. You're not born with it, okay? It's basically overcoming adversity while you're creating value in people's lives. You have a product or a service that people love, and they're willing to throw money at you to have you solve their problem. It's as simple as that. Peter Diamandis said one time, I think on a talk, it might have been a TED Talk, he said, you know, if you want to make $1 billion, then solve problems for 1 billion people. It's as simple as that. So going and buying a business, from my experience, businesses that go up for sale are usually shit. It's either because they're poorly run, or the guy wants to get out of it because he doesn't like the industry, or he sees something with insider information that's going to decline. I've never talked to a friend, fellow entrepreneur, that's bought a business or evaluated a business that entered it with their eyes wide open. Quite often, once the purchase is complete and several months go by and they start going through the numbers on the books, there's always some surprise in there that they don't tell you about. And it's like, woo, you know, surprise, look at this. And it's some brand new thing that you didn't budget for or plan for or expect to come your way in the business. So my recommendation is never buy a business, it's create one. Buying one, I think, sucks. Why would you want to buy some other guy's piece of shit that he doesn't want when you can go and create something that you really enjoy and love? The only time that I'd suggest maybe getting into a business that you're buying, if it's something simple, a coin car wash, you know, it's a cash business. All you do is just throw in the soap and water, make sure it's working. It's pretty simple, cut and dry. The numbers should line up pretty straightforward. But for the most part, I think creating a business is a far, far better way to go if you're going to go down the road of entrepreneurship. All right, so your next question is any business book recommendations. All right, well, my first book recommendation, I'm just going to go into my Audible account here, will be Richard Branson's Losing My Religion. Or sorry, not Losing My Religion. Why am I saying that? Richard Branson's Losing My Virginity. As far as any other books that will help wake you up to the world of business. Let me see here. I got a lot of red pill books. All right. The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene is a must read for everybody. Another great book is called Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, which is basically the Nike story. Listen, success leaves clues and so do failures. So if you go in and read into the stories of other people that have done magnificent things like legendary men, then you'll pick up a lot of useful information based on their experiences, which you can R&D, which stands for not research and development, but rip off and duplicate. Resilience is another great book. Author is Eric Greitens, Greitens. Make sure you have a pen for that one. Resilience, hard-won battles, okay? It's really good. Anti-Fragile is another great book by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. I've recommended that book on my channel a few years ago. Hooked is another great business book by Nir Eyal. E-Y-A-L, first name is N-I-R. It basically teaches you how to build a product or service that people will use on an ongoing basis. A great example is something like Facebook. Why are people always on Facebook? Well, a lot of the elements that he talks about in Hooked, he's basically reverse engineered and distilled it in the book to help you understand how you build habit-forming products. Another great book is called The Everything Store by Brad Stone, which is essentially a Jeff Bezos story, for Amazon. That's a great one. And I'll leave it at anything by Seth Godin is probably useful as a business read. There's plenty there. I don't want to overload you with great business books, but you'll find a ton of value in anything there on that list. And you've got one more question here in your request regarding your circle of friends. Rarely see my old friends at school now. Want some advice on how I can build my network who want to improve themselves as men. This applies both for business networking and women in health. Old friends practically play games and can't have them drain my soul anymore. Very good, my brother. You're learning, my young brother. I know you have a private network of friends, and the 21 convention is also great, but I'm thinking more about people that I can actually meet in person in Melbourne. Any advice on that? Any websites you find, guys, near my area? Work at a retail job, not into self-improvement either. Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, if you surround yourself with idiots, you're going to become an idiot, okay? I mean, if you're going to work a basic job that is punch the card, get your minimum wage, your basic benefits, and go home, you're not going to be happy. You know, a job just stands for just over broke is all it is. It's not going to create fulfillment and happiness in your life, you're going to need to find yourself in a place where you're making about six figures, about $100,000 a year, before you can actually level everything out. Anything beyond that's just gravy. I mean, you don't need to make $1 million a year to be happy, but they found through a lot of psychological studies that most people around the $80,000 to $100,000 a year mark can find a lot of contentment in their life. So you're not going to do it where you're at right now. But the good thing is you're still a young man. You're only 22 years old. You know, if you took the next couple of years, here's my advice. If you took the next couple of years and worked a job that might suck. Let's say your first job sucks. Let's say you're working, you know, in an accounting program. You know, you're talking about, you know, accounting or bookkeeping or something like that. Do that for a year or two just to see how shitty that can be. See how the organization is run. See how the corporate structure is set up. See how they compensate people. See how they treat people in the corporate world. Just get your feet wet. And then go looking for a much better job if you find that one sucks, if you don't get it right the first time. You can take anywhere from, let's say, 3 to 4 years, working a couple of different jobs, getting exposed to these different types of businesses. And while you're in the business, one of the things that I used to do in my 20s was I had this notebook. I have something similar, but I don't have it on my desk right now. And on the front couple pages of the book, while I was on my lunch, I'd usually read the newspaper. It shows you how old I am because, you know, we didn't have any available stuff on business or stock. So I'd read the business section of the newspaper. I'd make notes on business ideas that I came up with, that I saw from the articles and even in the business that I was working. At that time, I was working in credit and collections. So just jotting some ideas down over the next 3 to 4 years while you work. Then if you think you have something that will solve a problem, a lot of problems for a lot of people, go and offer it to them and see if they're willing to give you money. Go and create a business. You can do it on the side as a side hustle. One of the best ways, I think, is, well, what happened to me was I took a package and I went home when I was 30. You basically get hired for your resume. You get fired because of fit. My boss at the time, the vice president, let's just put it this way. He was a French-Canadian guy that didn't like English guys. So he used to pick on me a lot, and I don't take it. So, you know, I got hired for my resume and I got fired because of fit. They gave me a package. I went home. I took that money and I basically looked around and I was like, what am I going to do? Go and work for somebody else doing the same thing? Or do I go and become an entrepreneur? I was 30 at the time. I had businesses in my teens or even as a kid. I used to do paper routes. I used to contract out my paper routes to friends to deliver paper. I used to collect bottles to return them, you know, either the liquor store or the grocery stores, because they'd give you like 5 to 10 cents a bottle. I used to cut lawns, shovel driveways. So when I was a kid, I always wanted to do something to kind of create some form of cash flow because I wanted to buy shit. My parents wouldn't give me money. So after that, you know, my 20s was basically post-secondary education and some B-list college. It was in Toronto called Centennial College. And then worked for the corporate world up until about 30. And then I was like, all right, I'm done. I'm going to go create something for myself. And I did that. It's a good path to follow. It's not going to hurt you to go and work for a couple of shitty years in a company and then a couple of great years, hopefully in another one if you can find it, and then look for opportunities to go and create something new and then go and do it. But, you know, for the love of God, go and do it. You're never going to find true happiness and success and wealth lining somebody else's pocket with gold. So check out those book recommendations. I'd start with Richard Branson's Losing My Virginity, plus the other ones that I mentioned. You've got a few years to kind of figure it out and understand the way the business world works and hopefully navigate it properly. Don't waste time getting into a long-term relationship or marriage or putting a woman up on a pedestal and making her the priority on your life. I've talked enough about that on my channel. I think that's probably sunk in. And to answer your last and final question, find men that you want to be like, okay, because you're asking about your friends. Find men that you want to be like and then do stuff with them. Successful guys do things like play golf. They shoot guns. I don't know if you guys can still have guns in Australia. I think the Liberals took them all away from you, but, you know, we can do that here. So, you know, find something that men are doing that you want to be like. Find success and go and surround yourself with it. Find these people and then go and do things with them. Tim Ferriss, if you read the 4-Hour Work Week, I think he talks about how he kind of got started up in Silicon Valley. He donated his time to, I can't remember the name of the company, but it was some organization that got involved in incubators and startups and a few other things. He didn't have any money. He drove in there in his mom's shitty ass minivan that was falling apart and basically lived in it a little bit. So It's good that you're asking the questions, but now it's time to take the action and go and do it. Get rid of the losers, okay? If you want to be a hero, don't surround yourself with zeros. Look for people that are successful. R&D, which stands for rip off and duplicate. Read those books that I mentioned. And that is it. If you have any other top-ups, guys, that are watching this, any comments for this request, leave them below as feedback. And that's it. Reach request done. If you want to ask a question, you can pose it over here on reach.me/Richard Cooper. And of course, I'm still going to recommend the best place to contact me is going to be on the Patreon community that I've built. We've got close to 300 guys now working on become better versions of ourselves, private Facebook community, live Q&As with me monthly, and premium content that doesn't get uploaded to YouTube, and that's $10 a month. So see you there, hopefully. Catch you guys later. Peace.